Hi, I'm Cathy Miller. I'm the Emergency Preparedness Team Leader for the nonprofit Taproot.
Good afternoon. I'm George Endicott, Mayor of Redmond, and a concerned citizen about the potential for some disaster preparedness and relief in Deschutes County and Redmond.
Hello, and I'm Don Weber. I'm the Deschutes County Emergency Manager. I work for the Sheriff's Office, and I'm a concerned citizen because I live in Redmond also, so this works perfect.
So what we'd like to address is the Cascadia earthquake. Worst case scenario, there's been a lot of talk, and why should people care here in Central Oregon, because it's not really going to impact us. So something. So if you would, Don, kind of give us the big picture of what would happen starting with the epicenter, how it would impact the coast, move towards the valley, and then ultimately have an impact on the city of Redmond.
Boy, that's going to be a long-winded answer. The Oregon coast will cease to exist as we know it today, and you know the new saying is the coast is toast. The low-lying areas along the coast will be out into the ocean. That's part of the way that this fault was discovered, was trees that like their feet dry are now sitting in water, and it led them to ask, why did this happen? But Oregon Highway 101 will no longer be there. It'll be broke up bridges, not to mention the effects from the tsunami that'll also affect the coast, but more importantly to us, the effects of the earthquake, the ground will roll. It'll have big rolling motions in it, and as that moves into the Willamette Valley, they're going to lose most of their infrastructure. Going to be a lot of people left homeless. A lot of the industry is going to be down. And when I say they're going to lose their infrastructure, that means that their gas lines, a lot of them will probably break. They're going to lose electricity, potable water, sewer, and a lot of the bridges are going to be down. And anybody that's curious about that can go to the web and look up the ODOT bridge survey that was done last year or the year before. It's really in depth, and it'll give you a good idea of what bridges will be up and which ones won't. But as the ground rolls, you know, if it goes long enough, even good things break. And, you know, they're saying, some people say 5 minutes, some people say 10 minutes, so let's say 7 minutes. And here in Redmond and anywhere in Central Oregon, we've got the advantage of time, distance, and shielding, but we're still going to feel that slow wave motion. So physically, we're gonna do pretty good. Most of us live in stick-built homes that the boards and nails, you know, they can sway and stay in pretty good shape. And the few masonry buildings that we've got were built before earthquake science was around, so they're all almost unreinforced masonry, or what you'll see in some literature referred to as URMs. And we would probably see some damage in those because there's no give in them. It's just the brick and mortar, so as the ground would move, things will break up. But you know, I wouldn't expect complete devastation on any of those either. What's probably most important to us, it's not so much in damage, but it's that loss of infrastructure in Portland. You know, we get our gasoline, we get our milk, we get our bread. You know, thank goodness for the local dairy, because if it's coming in from outside, we're not gonna get it resupplied quite a spell. We'll eventually get things rerouted, and the emergency management community's working now on trying to work with folks to get plans in place to where they can go to vendors to the east. But nonetheless, for a while, we're gonna do without. If you don't have it in your house, you're not gonna get it. It'll be that initial rush will be like Labor Day on steroids. Everybody's going to make a rush to the market. They're going to pull stuff off the shelves, and so, you know, the gas stations may be without gas because everybody's wanted to fill up their tank. The supermarkets may be empty for a while, and then we'll have our own problems in case we have brownouts or where we do lose electricity. We're not going to have gasoline because very few of them have generators anymore. So it's not so much the destruction that we're going to feel here, but it'll be the impact of the earthquake that'll hit us the most.
So Mayor, I know that the city has just approved an emergency operation plan. Could you elaborate on what you see the impact in terms of your responsibilities, both with the private citizens and also then in terms of the community at large?
Sure. There are two ways I try and address this. One is a personal responsibility, and as you know, this document has been prepared, the personal survival manual that we're trying to get out there, spread around as much as we possibly can, that walks through that, what we've been calling 3-hour, 3-day, 3-week scenario, so that people know what to expect, what kinds of supplies they should have available, water, food, heat, non-metal whistles, and so forth. So this is a great document. Everybody should try and get one. From a city perspective, I've been addressing the eventualities that you brought up from infrastructure. So all of our wells have generators. We will have fresh water. We have enough generating power for about a week. I'm talking diesel generators with fuel supplies. We have contracts in place for emergency fuel, but who knows, right? If you can get it or can't get it.
You're really proactive.
Yeah. We have made arrangements now for pumping to the extent that we need pump stations for sewage. We have generators contracted for to be able to take care of that. We have diesel generating power at the sewer treatment plant. So in theory, we'll have fresh water and sewer. Those are two vital public health issues.
Very important.
One of our major concerns, as you talked about brownouts, so we don't know about power and things like natural gas over time. We don't know how long it'll be out, how severe the outage will be, or how long lasting it will be. So that's a crapshoot, as you sort of pointed out. It might be a week or it might be a few days. We just don't know yet. The good news, of course, is that the main Bonneville power transmission lines come through
It's on this side.
and in theory, the dams won't be affected, so we may have power in our substations. Should be in pretty good shape, so maybe we'll have power before very long. The other things, as you pointed out earlier in our private discussion, natural gas may or may not be impacted, and again, to the degree we don't know. As far as public safety, that one, again, and it depends on who you ask. When I interviewed with the Red Cross, they said that we could potentially get up to 100,000 refugees. We are not ready for that. We can handle 20 or 25,000, last number I heard. I talked to Dan Despotopoulos at the fairgrounds. They're a major site, and they can handle several thousand. We have schools. We have other emergency preparedness places that could possibly step up.
That was one of the things that I was going to discuss with you about was the mega shelter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard that term or if Dan told you, but
Mm-hmm.
the fairgrounds has been identified as a mega shelter site. And the term mega shelter is only coined when you're expecting 5,000 or more. And mega shelter is not the responsibility of the Red Cross, it's the responsibility of local government. And so county and city is going to have to, we got quite a bit of work to do on that because, the highway's telling us we might have 3 days before the road opens over the pass, and that's given the Detroit Dam doesn't go out and wash out the road and everything. So in the perfect world, we'd have at least 3 days, and then, hopefully we'd have something set up. But
Again, water, power,
yep,
sewer. I mean, all those issues that come with a lot of people, a huge influx.
we've got to have it here. They're not going to be coming to a better place.
Yeah.
They'll just be moving the problem.
A friend of mine's a mayor in one of the cities in the valley, and he said, "You have a spare bedroom?" And I said, "I do." And he said, "Well, wouldn't you rather have a friend than a stranger staying in your house with you?" So, I mean, we just don't know the impact. The other thing that concerns me a bit, You know, another issue is our police force overwhelmed with just this. I mean, you know, we have a city of 26,000. If it doubles within a day or so, how do we deal with that? You know, from a public safety perspective. So that's a consideration that we're giving a lot of thought to as well.
How about the airport? What do you see our role in terms of logistics?
Well, interesting you should ask, because again, back to the potential scenarios, PDX is probably in trouble. I mean, it's built on fill, and we know what happens in an earthquake, the ground
Count it out.
It liquefies, and the airport's probably gone. And then even Eugene, if it's a strong enough earthquake, I mean, you know, big expanses of concrete crack and break and shift in, so it would probably be unusable as well. So where does that leave as the primary airport for relief operations in the state of Oregon? It leaves Redmond. And potentially Kingsley at Klamath Falls has a longer runway than we do, but it's more remotely located.
Just last week I was in an exercise and I was talking to the guys from Klamath and Kingsley, where it's locally owned. They're doing the same kind of planning.
Mm-hmm.
They don't expect to be the center of activity, kind of like we are, but nonetheless, like you say, they have a longer runway, so they're building things with the thoughts that they'll probably be getting some activity down there. But one of the things that concerns me is everybody's planning on using Redmond Airport, but none of them are coming to you or the commissioners or the airport manager and saying this is what we're planning. So you know, that's one of the things I'm going to need your help on, is getting somebody's attention and saying we need to coalesce all these plans, mm-hmm. because the airport is only so big, and if we don't know who all's planning on using it to where, you know, we can plan, it'd be chaos just to have stuff start showing up and,
right.
and not know how we're going to do it, and no matter how self-sufficient they come, locally, there's still things that they would expect for us to provide support in.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we've got these activities at the airport, and we've got activities at the fairgrounds, and then, you know, if we can't keep everybody on the fairgrounds, like you say, you know, it becomes could become a big issue for law enforcement. You know, and the National Guard, we could get some help from them, but a lot of the Guard lives in the valley, so they're not going to be able to be here. And I would expect that maybe with the size of the event, the Guard will get a mission to do things over in the valley, probably more than
or the
than
coast.
here. Or the
They'll be
coast.
in life-saving operation, which we would then obviously and rightfully so be a
Yep.
secondary priority,
So
which I understand.
There's lots going on, and you know, that's why I'm glad to see the activity going on here, because we all need to get together and do a lot of coordinating. There's still lots to be done, and in a lot of ways I think we're ahead of what they're doing over in the valley. You know, we're actually trying to move forward with the things that we're doing, and that sometimes I get the feeling like they're like deer stuck, you know, staring into the headlights. This is such a big thing, it's hard to get your head around it, and so they kind of get into the planning mode and never move forward with anything, because I'm not getting anything tangible from them that we can work on, that this is what they're going to do, so this is what we need to plan on doing. So I'm just tickled to death to see Redmond, you know, being so proactive and moving forward.
Well, I do have some news in that regard. Is it next week? Anyway, coming up in the near future is a major exercise. It's statewide, being run by the National Guard, and I think it's next week. I can't remember the name of it.
There's
or
one
next
where
month.
he pretends like his airplane goes down.
No, this is the Cascadia. This is a catastrophic.
And they ask us not to play in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's west side only.
Yeah, they asked me to come over and observe. And then next on the 27th, I'm meeting with the head of the Cascadia for the National Guard, someone that works for General Caldwell.
Do you know who that is?
No, I don't know the name.
Okay.
But I'm meeting with him next Friday and say, look, it's my understanding that we are integral to your plans. Well, I've never had anybody knock on my door, so here I am. So what do you plan, and what are you gonna do to us, and what do you want from us?
That's a
So,
good thing.
so I'm doing that. Another good piece of news, as I don't know if it's serendipitous or the word's filtering out, but the FEMA coordinator for the Cascadia event is coming to Redmond Airport in the next few weeks to meet with us, to have a discussion about our role. So we're throwing enough rocks, and we're starting to
All
get-
my browbeating must be taken.
yeah,
back.
yours and mine between us, you know. We're trying to get traction, and maybe we are. So, you know, my issue is that Redmond has two roles, I think, over and above what I call the secondary, the effects role. We will probably be a major role for refugees and trying to deal with that issue. And then chances are, as you pointed out, we're gonna be a central point for the relief operations. And so if we have C-17s landing in here every minute or 5 minutes, how in the world are we gonna move those supplies? And I was told, oh, don't worry, we'll have lots of Chinook helicopters. Well, I am worried. That's good to say, but show me.
Yes.
I'm from Missouri, you know. And, oh, if we don't have enough here, we'll just bring some from Idaho. Well, show me.
Mayor, you had mentioned earlier that, you know, the first responders are gonna be absolutely overwhelmed here locally at first. What do you think the damage actually will be
In Redmond,
in Redmond?
primary?
And then if you could elaborate maybe to the county, just for people to start planning and
Yeah.
taking some personal responsibility.
Well, of course,
Those
you know, my
first
concern's
units.
Redmond, yours is the county, and then we also have the tri-county, the region. So I think if refugees start flowing in, if they're coming from Portland, given that they can get across bridges and across the mountain, are they stopping in Madras? So what are Madras's plans vis-a-vis us or Jefferson
Currently,
County?
they're planning on routing them on either to us or to Prineville.
Yeah, they're saying, we don't have room, you know, go to Post.
Yep.
So, and then there's Bend and Redmond, and maybe Sisters. I mean, Sisters is the first town they come to, so they're gonna be overwhelmed, because a lot of people are gonna go to Sisters High School, to the gymnasium, and not go any further. But to the extent they keep pushing them east, then it's Redmond or it's Bend, and Bend is gonna have as big a problem as we do. We know east of here, there's nothing for a long ways, I mean, other than Prineville. You know, you have to go all the way to Bernston, another population center, so I don't think we're gonna see a big trailer camp out at Mitchell or you know, Brothers or something. So they're gonna be looking for population centers to at least temporarily settle. So, you know, coping, it's gonna be really tough. And you know, the other thing that I worry about, I mean, I hate to say it, but I worry a little bit about anarchy. Theft, break-ins, people get desperate people do desperate things. And so that's another big concern. Our police department, the sheriff, are overwhelmed with the numbers of people. And if you start getting rogue, anarchists running around, then the problem exacerbates real quick.
So what would your advice be to the average businessman, to the average person, if something like this were to happen? What would your advice be?
Fill as many water bottles as you can before the water goes off. You know, I mean, that sounds stupid, but and you know, I keep telling my wife I have several 5-gallon buckets, and I don't know how often you're supposed to refresh them, but I now keep a pretty good water supply on hand. And I have a trailer house, so I'll, to the extent water's running, I'll fill up the tanks in that and probably live in it. I have power and water in it. It's you know, self-sufficient.
You know, one of the, whether it's a Cascadia or you know, it doesn't matter, severe winter storm, a windstorm that knocks stuff down. You know, people need to stock up on food. You know, if you live out of the grocery store every day, someday it's going to bite you. Because a disaster, it's not when, it is going to happen sometime in our future. And you've got to have, there's not going to always be somebody there to take care of you. You know, government, there's more of you than there are of us. And so, you know, we can't do everything for everybody and keep everybody whole. It's incumbent upon people to take care of themselves somewhat. So you got to have food. You know, you need to go to the Red Cross and get your basic first aid and stuff like that, because, you know, if we do have something happen, EMS, might be tied up on the big stuff, the people that are really dying, and just because you've got a cut, you know, you're going to dial 911 and you may not get help. So you need to be able to take care of yourself. If we have the pandemic, you know, it's one step away from the bird flu becoming a reality. As soon as it makes that genetic leap to where it can spread from person to person, and we have a pandemic. We had one a couple of years ago with the flu. Well, the pandemic it's going to be fatal. And the way that you're going to survive it is to stay away from other people. You're going to want to keep your kids home. You're going to want to keep, you know, your family intact. You're not going to want to have to go out and socialize in places where there's lots of people congregating. That's the way it's going to spread. So there's lots of reasons to be self-sufficient. And no matter how much food you put on the shelf, if you get hungry and don't feel like going to the store, you can always go to the shelf. So, you know, it's always a win-win, and you can never go wrong. The other thing for business is you need to think about if something happens, how long can you go before your business would be bankrupt if you couldn't open the doors? You know, if we had something happen, and I always use kind of the example of a hazmat release, and your business might be in the plume or something, and it gets, you know, some sort of bad stuff on it, and you can't open the doors for a week, and you have to have an environmental restoration place come in. Is your business set up to where you could run your business without ever going inside for a week? Can you do payroll? Can you talk to your vendors? Can you do all the things that you need to do to stay in business? I learned it firsthand when before I come to the sheriff's office. I was the emergency manager for 12 Valley Fire and Rescue, and Beaverton City Hall had a fire. It was in the roof, didn't do any damage, but the sprinklers come on, and it sprinkled down the entire engineering department. They didn't have a business continuity plan, so there wasn't any way, you know, and this was kind of right at the height of the boom with business and industry. And so there wasn't any way for contractors to get their permits, and you know, all the things that have to go on from an engineering department with a city that size. Everything got put on hold, and so I got to see firsthand how something so simple put them out of business for so long. And the same thing can happen to any business. So you know, what if we had a 6-foot snow? Back in the 80s, you know, we had several days where the snow come down faster than we could move it, and you know, if you're not on a snow route and you can't get into your business, are you going to be in business when it's over? So emergency planning is always a good thing. For the Cascadia, it's good, but whether it be the Cascadia or anything, it's not if, but it's a matter of when, and you can never go wrong. You know, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, or whatever the saying is. Mm-hmm. So,
you know, I think there's one other aspect that we need to think about, and that is, when does it happen? And by that I mean time of year.
Yes.
If it happens in the summer, that's a whole different scenario than if it's in January.
Exactly.
You know? And so that's one thing, you know, we always think, oh, it's going to happen in the summer when it's nice and warm. And, you know, just, I was watching TV last week when all those tornadoes ripped through the Midwest, and that one big storm front went through in the middle of the night. Now, talk about terrifying. It's one thing if it's during the day when you can see the tornado. If it's happening at night and you can't see anything,
well, here's the train coming, but you don't know where it's going to hit.
Boy, that's really a lot scarier than being able to see it. So that's another thing. Is it winter? Is it summer? Is it day? Is it night?
What happens, you know, in terms of the Cascadia, if it is during the summer and it's right after lightning storm and we've got fires, you know, yeah, there's some that maybe they could let burn, but there's a lot of them we're going to have to put out, and we're still going to need all that manpower. We're going to need those air tankers. Granted, they can run them out of different places, but Redmond is definitely set up the best. Redmond Air Center, one of the region's largest caches, is right here. So, you know, we could have the hubbub of, you know, I know this is all starting to sound really doomsday-ish, but, you know, if we plan for the worst, then everything will be something less. And so, you know, you have to think about what happens if we've just had a lightning bust come through and we've got more fire sheets they could stick at, and we're having to staff fires, and now, you know, people start coming over the hill, and we have to start dealing with them. And it made me think, one of the things she's just talking about was, you know, people driving. You know, some of them are only gonna have enough gas to get so far, and then the rig's gonna stop on them. So, you know, we may have people dotted all along the highway, and to move them on any farther, we're gonna have to have the ability to fill up their gas tank to even send them to Burns or to Boise or to John Day or wherever. So this is a big planning scenario. So,
Yeah, it is.
you know, we gotta take care of ourselves first, and then, you know, start planning for everything else that comes in. And
You know, speaking of the Cascadia, a lot of people have asked, maybe you can comment, will the earthquake potentially trigger any volcanic activity? Is that something we need to be concerned about?
well, we talked about that a little bit before we started here, and everything that I've heard from the geologists is the two aren't related. So
That's what I've heard as well.
that, you know, we've seen around the world now several large earthquakes that are going to be just like the Cascadia, and all of them are around the Ring of Fire, you know, which means we not only have the earthquake, but we've also got the volcanoes. And so far, there hasn't been any correlation between the earthquake and volcanic activity, so hopefully, you know, we wouldn't be the first.
Just the old Boy Scout adage, be
Be
prepared.
prepared.
And we're trying. So, you know, I just want to close out by just wrapping up and talking about there's personal responsibility, and then there's, you know, our role in government and the collective responsibility, if you will. And we're working real hard on our plans, but if everybody gets a hold of this document, you can get it through the police department or from Taproot and on their website, taproot.org.
Taprootonline.org.
taprootonline.org, and get a copy of this document and be prepared personally, because it might be 3 hours, it might be 3 days, or it might be 3 weeks, so be ready.
And one of the things that this talks about, we're a society that we've kind of, you know, became, I don't want to go knock on your door. We're not friendly like we were 20, 30 years ago. We're not as social because of all the things that happen now in society. But, you know, one of the things that this talks about, and one of the things to truly make us prepared, is get to know your neighbor. Especially, you know, if they're a shut-in, you know, they've got something that they need outside help. Go over, check on them, you know, make sure they're all right. But you know, find out what the strengths and weaknesses in your neighborhood are. You know, you might find out you've got a doctor, to where if somebody does get hurt, you can go knock on a door. You might find you got a plumber, electrician. You know, like I said, it kind of goes counter to the way our society is now, where we put our heads down and don't look other people in the eye like we used to. But for disaster preparedness, it's something that we kind of have to go out of our comfort zone and make ourselves do, is, you know, get to know your neighbor, and if you can really do it right, you know, do it by the block. And I saw one time you was talking about block captains, which is excellent. You know, somebody's got to be in charge, and you know, they're not really in charge, but you've got somebody to kind of lead the charge. And I'm just tickled to death with Redmond. You guys are doing so much of the right thing, and you know, if people need help with anything, or if you know, I can be of any help, don't hesitate to contact me at the sheriff's office, and I work for you, so just ask for me, and I'll try and be available when I can be.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for all the good input, and let's hope we don't need it, but we know someday we will, so.
Let's just keep talking.
Yeah, not on our watch.
Yeah, exactly.